Welcome back to another Thanksgiving edition recipe. I just want to take a moment and I wanted to thank you for clicking on this video and seeing what I was all about. I'm relatively new to YouTube, so if you gave me some love, I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to bring you some really wonderful, true, and tried recipes. So I know that they're good. I'm just not putting out a recipe and saying, it might be good. I know it's good. It's approved by my family. So, it's easy, traditional keto stuffing. It's easy, but what makes it traditional? It's the bread. And you got a choice here, so I'm putting it out here right here in the beginning. You can either follow me through this recipe and make your own keto bread, or you can stop right there and join me back in when we start to dry out our own breadcrumbs and run to the store and get your own bread. Completely up to you. It's easy. It's how you want to do it. It don't bother me one way or another. So let's get started with this recipe. These are the ingredients that we're going to be working with today. I do have 6 eggs here. We got some cream of tartar. We have a 1/4 cup of melted butter. We got our baking soda, obviously from Great Value. It's Walmart brand. I have a Redmond's real salt. I love the taste of this salt. It is so different from any of the other salts that I've had, so I really love it. And then I've got this almond flour. It's finely ground. It's almost like a powder. And Green Wise actually comes from Publix, and they actually had a very decent price on this almond flour. So if you've got a Publix in your area, you may want to check that out. So these are the ingredients that we're starting with, and let's get started on making this bread. So the very first thing we need to do is preheat our oven to 375 degrees. While that's preheating, you go and you struggle with an 8x4 loaf pan putting this parchment paper in here. Let me tell you, it's my friend in the kitchen, because if you ever made the mistake of using wax paper, you know it's your friend. But shoo, getting these in these pans and making them stay, that's a workout. So if you've been following me for a little bit, you know I like to start with my dry ingredients first. So I already added 1.5 cups of this almond flour. I just went ahead and added it because it wasn't easy to get my measuring cups into the bag, and I just didn't want to stumble with that on video, to be honest. So the next thing that we're going to be putting in here is going to be our baking powder and salt. So our baking powder is going to be one tablespoon. It's crazy. It is crazy. We're going to put this in here. And for our salt, it is going to be 1/2 of a teaspoon. I'll just move these out of the way here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of incorporate this all in here evenly as possible. Okay, so I'm setting this over to the side. And now our very next step is we are going to go ahead and put these 6 eggs in here. But we have to separate the egg whites from the yolks. So let's have some fun with this, because I'm not going to claim to do this very well. I stumble. So let's have a good laugh with me. I never claimed to have been graceful doing this, so. All right. That wasn't too bad. Let's go on to the rest and see how bad I can do with that. Apparently pretty bad. All right, so we're back. I just didn't want to bore you. No, let's be honest here. I didn't want you to watch me stumble trying to separate these egg whites and these yolks. And as you can see, my egg yolks are not pretty. But I did manage to get them separated. So we have got to put some cream of tartar in here. Oh, look, I've never used this cream of tartar. All right, so we are going to put a half of a teaspoon of cream of tartar in here, and we are going to whip these into stiff peaks. If you've ever seen anybody do any meringue, that is basically how they do it. So let's get started. As you can see, the consistency has changed a lot. But I'm going to set this over to the side, and I'm going to bring my dry ingredients here. So on this part, I am going to beat my butter and my eggs. I want to make sure we get all this yumminess out of these eggs. All right, so we're going to beat this all together. All right, so we've got it's a really nice thick batter going on right now. Made a mess. So I'm going to scrape my sides here and bring this all down here. Apparently what I'm good at is just making a lot of noise. Okay. So the fun part is we're going to take a third of this mixture. Ooh, it is so nice and fluffy. And we're going to fold it in until it's well incorporated. I never claim to be really graceful with this stuff. So if you have a better way of doing this, by any means, do it a better way. Okay, so now it's getting really nice and airy. Gotta fold it in just a little bit more. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in the rest of it, and we're going to continue to fold it in until it's all mixed up. That is some beautiful fluff right there. It even sounds nice. Okay, fold her in. Trying not to get my arm in the way here so you can see how the consistency is changing. And it's just like getting very light and airy here. I'm trying to make sure I get the bottom here too. This is a different consistency, that's for sure. All right. Looks pretty soupy, but it is all eggs, so you're going to be really surprised on how it cooks up. And this is looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my spatula just so that I can not fight with getting all of this off in there. And it just sounds like a really good idea, whether it is or not. All right, so here we are. We got our loaf pan. Trying to scrape down some of the goodness. I'm just making a mess. I was always told you wasn't baking good in the kitchen unless you were making a mess. And I do a really good job of making a mess. All right, so we're going to get this in here, and we are going to smooth down the top of this, because this is what it looks like at this point. So we're just going to smooth down the top and try to fill in all these corners here. If you were just wanting to make a keto bread, I have the carbs figured out for 8 slices out of this, and I will pop up those macros while this is baking in the oven for you. And it is going to go in the oven for 30 minutes, and we're going to check it. We want the top to be slightly golden, and we want a toothpick to come out clean. So let's check this in 30 minutes and see where we're at. It was in there in the oven for 30 minutes, and it came out just perfect. You can see my hole from where I already checked it. I'll check it in another place here for you. But it's come out nice and clean. It's kind of got a very airy appearance to it. It looks really cool. I cannot wait to let this cool down and slice into it. So I'll be back when I slice into this. And then from there, we will dry it out to make our breadcrumbs. All right, we're at the part where we get to cut up our bread. Whether you made the bread from the recipe that I have used or if you purchased your own. And we're going to be using 3 tablespoons of butter. And I'm going to go over these steps with you. So let's get started. So let's get making these breadcrumbs. I've got them all cut into bite-sized pieces here in my bowl. And then I melted down that 3 tablespoons of butter. So basically, we're just going to put this over the top and we're going to coat it as evenly as possible. I also lined this baking dish, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out here on a nice even layer. We are going to be cooking this in the oven at 350 degrees, and it needs to go in for about 10 to 12 minutes. I believe this is probably going to come down to preference on how crispy that you're going to want them. But I'm going to go ahead and put that in the oven, and we'll check on it in 10 minutes and see if we're where we need to be. I just got these breadcrumbs out of the oven. It did take longer than the 10 to 12 minutes. I had them in there for 15. They got a little bit of brown edges, and a little browning on the edges. They're firm. They're dried out, but they're not like too dried out. So I'm going to let these cool down, and then I'm going to store them in a plastic bag. One of the good things about this recipe is that you can do some of the prep work ahead so that you're not having to do it all on the day and just get overwhelmed in the kitchen. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get the meat part of this ready. So let's jump into that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this roll of sausage in half because it's a pound and we only need 8 ounces. I never claimed to be graceful, so. Now, of course, if you don't think that 8 ounces is enough, you're more than welcome to use more. You can adjust this recipe any way that you feel comfortable doing that. And we're going to brown this up. So at this point, it's, partially cooked through. I am going to salt and pepper this. Basically the taste, I'm not going to measure this out. Alright, so the sausage is done now. We're going to take a slotted spoon and we're going to go and remove the sausage from the pan. Alright, so we are going to add this tablespoon of butter that is left. Breaking it up into pieces always helps it melt down a little bit quicker. We're going to go ahead and add in our celery and onions. And we're going to cook it for about 6 minutes until it starts getting soft and translucent. Alright, we'll be back when these get soft and we're going to start adding in those spices. So we're back. You can see that these have cooked down quite nicely. And we are going to go ahead and add in our spices. Just to make it a little simpler and to be easier on the time, I went ahead and add the spices, and I'm going to go over these again. It's 2 tablespoons of parsley, 2 teaspoons of sage, 1.5 teaspoons of thyme, and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. And then we're also going to do, just because I like garlic pretty well, we're going to do 2 teaspoons of garlic, minced garlic, or that's 2 cloves. Now, let's say you don't have all of these spices on hand, or you don't want to go out and buy them. You can also use poultry seasoning too. So we're going to go ahead and start getting some yummy smells going in here. And we're going to cook this for about a minute. Oh gosh, it's already smelling really, really good in here. But we're just going to get a nice good toast on these. Now, if you wanted to prepare this ahead of time, you could actually go ahead and prepare this and set and put it in with your meat mixture, because that's what we're going to be doing. And you could actually prepare that the night before. You would just have to warm it up again, so it's not so hard from being cold. That way it's easier to mix in the bowl with your breadcrumbs. That's why this recipe is so easy, is because it is something that you could prepare ahead of time without a problem. Alright, so we just want to do this for about a minute, and it's been about a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in here, back in here, and we're just going to give it a good mix together. Just start incorporating all these flavors together. Alright. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to sit this back in this bowl here and set to the side, and we're going to go ahead and put this in with the bread mixture and add our chicken broth and egg, and we're going to get this going and put it in that casserole dish. So we are finally on to our last step of making our stuffing. I already put the sausage and spices in with the bread, and I've been stirring it up just to start to mix it up real good. I'm going to set that over here to the side. Our next step is going to be getting 1.5 cups of this chicken broth. So and 1 large egg. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put both of these into this bowl, and I'm just going to beat it together. And then we'll add it to our bread meat mixture. And you can see that it's coming together really well. I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to go ahead and try to spread this out evenly over our mixture here. Okay. I'm going to give this a good toss and let this bread start soaking up that moisture. Alright, so this is going to be going into the oven at 350 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and transfer this over to a baking dish. I could align this again with parchment paper or foil, but I'm just going to spray it down for today just to make it simple. It's getting late in my evening, and this is going to be part of my meal, so I just want to get this going. And yeah, this is really soaked up a lot of that liquid. And I am going to just try to evenly distribute the meat and bread mixture in here two, so it's not too meaty in one spot and too bread in another spot. All right, that looks really good, and we are ready to put this in the oven. And it is going to be baking in the oven for 35 minutes with foil on top of this. So let me go ahead and get my foil. So we are going to bake it 35 minutes with the foil on. And then once we take the foil off, we're going to bake it an additional 15 to 20 minutes and to get a crisp on the breading itself. So I will be right back. And we're going to see what it looks like when it gets done. Alright, so it's fresh out of the oven. I baked it for 35 minutes. These are nice and crisp, and they look nice and set. Can't wait to dive into this and do a taste test. This is actually part of my dinner tonight. So let's get into this. Welcome back. We're finally done with our keto stuffing. It's actually a part of my meal. So let's go ahead and do that taste test. Honestly, my honest opinion and view on this is it tastes like stuffing. The sausage really brings in those seasonings of this stuffing. You can't tell that the bread is not like, breadcrumbs. It really is a win. This is definitely going to be a part of my Thanksgiving dinner so that I can stay legal for keto. So I hope that you will try this out. I know this video was long because I did it step from step, but the good thing about this recipe is it's very versatile and it's easy. You don't have to make the bread if you don't want to. I just went over that step in case you really wanted to. You can buy the bread and dry it out yourself. And the other really great part about this recipe is you can go ahead and dry that bread out a couple of days before. You can make the meat mixture and put it in your refrigerator and just warm it up and throw this all together. So it's very versatile. So I'm going to be bringing you more Thanksgiving edition recipes that I hope that you will enjoy. So stay tuned for that. I'll have another one out on Friday for you. And if you like this and want to see more things like this, like and subscribe. It's how I know what you're liking so I can bring more things to you. And I'm going to finish up my supper because this is really good. Bye, everybody.